Angels 6-4. Victories for Boston and San Francisco. The Yankees beat the White Sox 9-5. Yanks outfielder Cody Bellinger is out 4 to 6 weeks with a strained hamstring.
Live from the heart of SEC country, this is your daily fix of grit, guts, and gridiron glory. Welcome to the Deep South College Football Show.
Bowen, here he goes! Georgia retakes the lead!
Breaking down the biggest matchups, the boldest takes, and the deepest rivalries in college football on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC.
Intercepted! They confused him! Xavier Brown headed the other way! Touchdown Tide!
From Fayetteville to Gainesville, from the Grove to Toomer's Corner, it's SEC football.
Chambers delivers! Touchdown!
Now, here's your award-winning host, Wyatt Fulton.
Welcome into another edition of the Deep South College Football Show right here on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports. Going to not talk a ton about Alabama today, though. I teased it yesterday, and today we're going to talk a lot about the Big Ten, not the entire conference, because Jackson Whitman, as much fun as we have talking about the bottom feeders of the SEC, the teams in the SEC that many people deem not worthy of a conversation, they can go out on any given Saturday and beat anybody. Arkansas played in numerous one-score games last year, despite the fact that they were 2-10. Purdue was also 2-10. Not one of their losses looked or felt like a competitive football game, even if they were a little bit closer. Not one of those losses felt competitive. So we're not going to talk about the entire state of the Big Ten today, but we are going to talk a little bit about the big dogs here in the Big Ten. Ohio State and Oregon. And Jackson Whitman, you guys were split yesterday on who you were picking to win the Big Ten. Whitman, I think you went with Ohio State, and Jackson, you went with Oregon.
Yes.
So going to be a lot of fun to talk about these two programs today here. We'll talk about Oregon and Ohio State. I'm going to dip out of here about 1:45. I've got something that I got to go do. But Jackson uploaded a video with my guy Randy from How About Them Dogs Cast talking a little bit about Georgia and Kirby Smart. So if we can run that for the radio side of things here today after I dip out at 1:45, that'd be awesome. And then we'll get you ready for the game with Ryan Fowler here a little bit later this afternoon here. But we are talking a little bit about the Ohio State Buckeyes today, a team that they've won a national championship, number one, bar none. That's the ultimate goal. But they haven't had the success in the Big Ten championship that maybe Ohio State has expected to have or wanted to have in the Big Ten championship, right? They, go out last season, lose the Big Ten championship. Yeah, to Indiana. Yeah, they won they won the national championship 2 seasons ago, but they didn't even play in the Big Ten title game because they went out and had losses earlier in that season there, specifically to Oregon. Oregon won the Big Ten over Penn State. Ohio State got revenge from a regular season matchup in the Rose Bowl in the college football playoff, but Ohio State hasn't won a Big Ten championship. Correct me if I'm wrong here. They haven't won a Big Ten championship since 2020. Am I correct? I guess I'm correct. I don't know. I guess I'm right on that one. I'm looking up the list here. List of Big Ten Conference football champions. I could be wrong. But Indiana in 2025, Oregon in 24, Michigan in 23, 22, and 21. Ohio State, after rattling off a really good stretch of Big Ten championships there in 2020, 2019, 2018, 2017, even still, though, have not won a Big Ten title since the turn of the decade. This feels like the Ohio State roster that'll get the job done, led number one by Jeremiah Smith, the best wide receiver in college football, bar none. But around Jeremiah Smith, what does Ohio State have outside of the best wide receiver in college football? Well, I feel like they got a guy that, if he's not the best quarterback returning in the game, I feel like he's probably at least in the top 5, if not, number 2 in Julian Sayans, somebody that was at Alabama for a little bit. But guys, Julian Sayans is a phenomenal quarterback, even though he may not have the size and the arm strength that NFL draft scouts love to drool over.
No, it's really weird. I saw a good point made yesterday on the always entertaining internet. Only at Ohio State, and you could lump Alabama in there too. There are like 2 schools in the country where you could legitimately be a top 10 quarterback and be considered a bum. Like Julian Sayans was a phenomenal quarterback by several metrics last year. Accuracy, touchdowns, dispersing the ball to everybody on his football team. No, he doesn't have Josh Allen arm strength or Lamar Jackson running ability. But the kid was a Heisman finalist and one of the 5 best quarterbacks in the country. And you have people, both Ohio State fans and non-Ohio State fans alike, questioning, is this kid really the answer quarterback for the Buckeyes this year? It just doesn't make sense.
Kid had 3,600 passing yards, 77% completion percentage, 32 touchdowns to 8 interceptions last season. And it felt like there were several points in the year where everybody was saying, man, is he it? Is he that guy? Is he going to be the one that's going to lead Ohio State back to a college football playoff, back to a national championship appearance? It felt like, even though, like you said, Heisman finalist, 3,600-yard passer, 32 touchdowns, less than 10 interceptions, it felt like a lot of people had a lot of questions around Julian Sayin last season.
It did, and it was kind of confusing, but it also kind of brought me back to when Kyle McCord was there. Obviously, McCord didn't finish as a Heisman top 4 finalist, but he was doing much of the same, obviously not at the same clip that Sayin was. He didn't have the 77% completion percentage, maybe 1 or 2 more interceptions. But it felt like you got the same, if not similar, amount of production out of him. Obviously, Will Howard was able to come in there and right after him and take them to the national championship and ultimately win it. But what was the difference? It also
helps when you have Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, and freshman Jeremiah Smith.
Absolutely. And you still had Egbuka.
Emeka Egbuka was on that roster too.
And Carnell Tate. So, but what was it that Will Howard did that Julian Sayin didn't do last year as a first-year starter? Was it just the leg and running ability?
I would say
I'm kind of scratching my head at why are we nitpicking so much in a first-year starter who did immeasurably better than what Arch was projected to do? So what are we picking at?
I'm looking at this 2024 Ohio State stat book now. Will Howard, 4,000 passing yards, 35 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. So more yards, but less touchdowns, more interceptions. Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson had 1,000 rushing yards and over 10 touchdowns apiece in the run game. At wide receiver, Jeremiah Smith led the way with 1,300 yards and 15 touchdowns. Emeka Egbuka was a 1,000-yard receiver with 10 touchdowns. Carnell Tate had 700 yards and 4 touchdowns. Offensively, from what Ohio State did in 2024, especially in that playoff run, was very reminiscent of 2021 Alabama, right? Where Bryce Young was a 4,000-yard passer. Brian Robinson was a 1,000-yard rusher. Ohio State took it to the next level and had a second 1,000-yard rusher in there. But John Mechie and Jamison Williams were both 1,000-yard receivers at that point in 2021. So they've got all the talent. When you look at Ohio State, it's like what Nick Saban said. You guys think when a guy goes down, we just come out and crap out another 5-star. Well, yeah, because that's what you do. That's what you do, Nick Saban. That's what you do, Ryan Day. You had Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka leading your team to a national championship. And oh, by the way, your wide receiver 3 was the 4th overall pick in his respective draft. Nick Saban, when you lost Eddie Jackson at safety. So what did you do? You took the best cornerback in college football, converted him to safety, and he immediately became the best safety in college football in Minkah Fitzpatrick. This is what you do with these type of programs. A guy goes down, somebody gets hurt. Damn, that sucks. Hey, 5-star that's been sitting on the bench 2 years. You're up. Your time to shine. And I would say 9 times out of 10, out of a program like an Ohio State, out of a program like an Alabama, Georgia's on that level right now. When a guy goes down and you plop in another just random 5-star that decided he wanted to sit the bench or he wanted to learn from the best of the best, that guy comes in and immediately is just, all right, I'm the next big name at this position, at this program, at a position in a program that has a long and storied history of success at this position. And I'd argue Ohio State's going to do that again this season when you look at this wide receiver room. I could talk the entire show about Jeremiah Smith and how good he is. And I think he should be the 1st overall pick in the NFL draft, even as a wide receiver. Not going to do that. But the rest of this room, Brandon Ennis, former 5-star wide receiver that was very, very highly touted coming out of high school football or coming out of the high school ranks. And oh, by the way, you lost Carnell Tate. That sucks. 4th overall pick. Good for him going off to the NFL and being with the Tennessee Titans. Who'd you replace him with? Oh, the number 1 wide receiver in the 2026 recruiting class, Chris Henry Jr. That if you go back and watch the Ohio State spring game, which I did last night, if you go back and watch that Ohio State spring game, Chris Henry Jr. was unguardable as a true freshman 15 practices into his collegiate career.
And to circle this conversation back around to the nitpicking of the 2025 Ohio State offense and therefore Julian Sayin, a lot of people seem to forget kind of the reason that his yardage was down despite throwing for 3,700. Despite, they lost in the Cotton Bowl to Miami. I would blame the coaches for a lot of that. Now, Matt Patricia, Ryan Day on both sides of the ball did outstanding jobs, all year, kind of kept them wire to wire number 1 until the end of conference championship week. But it was a conversation throughout the year. When is Ohio State going to put their foot on the gas? We remember a lot of these games where they just sleptwalked through because they could. It always felt like Julian Sayin was just kind of here. Okay, I threw 2 touchdowns. That's good enough to win because their defense only gave up 10 points. It felt like their offense wasn't exactly going and trying to score 100 every game. They were kind of cool with, okay, 35, we're good, backups, have fun. Our defense is going to give up a touchdown and a field goal all game, and that touchdown's going to come with 4 minutes left in the fourth quarter. So, Julian Sayin never really had to learn how to run and gun as the quarterback, had to play with his foot on the gas pedal all the way to the floor. He never had to go win a football game for Ohio State in the regular season, and that kind of showed both in the Big Ten championship game and in the Cotton Bowl against Miami. He had never been tasked with, hey, you've got to go win this game at any point in the regular season, and he couldn't do it come time for postseason football. He didn't have to go beat Texas. His defense went out and beat Texas by giving up 1 touchdown. So I think if Ryan Day wants Julian Sayin to take that next step, if he wants the doubters and the critics to shut up in regards to his quarterback, he needs to go let him throw for 350, 400 yards early in the season and let him get a feel for what it's like to go be a football game, by himself. He needs to be the only guy on that field in his mind, and he can't do that in December if he doesn't do it in September.
And I like that you mentioned the coaching staff there. Last season, Brian Hartline was the offensive coordinator at Ohio State. Longtime wide receivers coach. He was the receivers coach when Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and Marvin Harrison Jr. and all those guys were coming through. He took over as the offensive coordinator last season. Or I guess 2 seasons ago. He was the offensive play caller is the big key, though. All season long, he was the offensive play caller. And Ohio State, while they, like Whitman said, they weren't pouring it on, scoring 50 a game just because they could. They'd get up by 35 or 40 points and say, all right, backups, good luck. Lincoln Kindholtz, figure out, put on some good tape for the transfer portal. But by the time of the Big Ten championship, Brian Hartline had taken the South Florida head coaching job after Alex Golesh left for Auburn. So by that point, it was known, Brian Hartline's leaving. So Ryan Day took back offensive play calling because he felt like, and I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially he felt like Brian Hartline couldn't double dip. So in that Cotton Bowl against Miami, Ryan Day was the offensive play caller, and Miami beat him. 2 years ago, when Ohio State won the national championship, he was the play caller all season long, where they had regular season losses to Michigan and Oregon. He gives it up for the postseason, and Ohio State goes scorched earth and kicks everybody's tail en route to a national championship, which further proves the point that being a primary play caller as a head coach may not be the best move, may not be the right decision. You need to be more of a CEO-style head coach, like a Kurt Cignetti, like a Kirby Smart, like a Kalen DeBoer, in order to win at the highest level here in college football. So Ohio State's offensive coordinator is Arthur Smith, former head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. So Jeremiah Smith,
garbage.
Enjoy run blocking this year, big dog.
Yeah, a lot can be said about Arthur Smith.
Who's Ohio State's tight end here? Nate Roberts. Okay, Nate Roberts, leading wide receiver for Ohio State this year.
Exactly. Even though when he was in Atlanta as the Falcons head coach and the play caller there, Kyle Pitts was utter garbage, but I digress.
I assume you're a Falcons fan.
Yes.
Okay, all right, yeah. Resident Falcons fan knows all about Arthur Smith there.
Trash. I'm so happy Ohio State hired him. I couldn't be more thrilled as a college football fan, an SEC fan. Oh, I love it. Dan Lanning's going to eat his lunch.
Love to hear that. Okay, so that kind of leans into the Oregon pick here. And we'll talk about Ohio State's defense here on the other side of the break. We'll go defense and schedule in the next segment. We'll flip to Oregon again because I got to get out of here a little bit earlier here on the Deep South College Football Show. We're off and rolling right here on Tide 100.9, 1230 AM WTBC. Your home.
The greatest play of the generation is coming to San Francisco.
Hello?
It's one of the best comedies in years.
I need to get through the curtain, please.
And a multi-Tony award-winning show.
Please, the audience needs me.
There's funny. There's very funny. And then there's Oh, Mary. Cola Scola's Oh, Mary. At the Curran Theater.
Where are we?
From October 13th through November 1st. Get tickets at us.atgtickets.com.
This is what happens when you don't sponsor your job on Indeed. Next time, get matched with quality candidates with Indeed sponsored jobs. Visit Indeed.com/hire now and sponsor your job today.
Coming up on The Game with Ryan Fowler.
Coming up on the Tuesday edition of The Game, we're going to talk to Mike Titillier, WWL, the big 870. We're also going to catch up with Bill Bender right here starting at 2 p.m. on The Game with Ryan Fowler on Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The longest running sports talk show in Tuscaloosa. The Game with Ryan Fowler. Weekdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on Tide 100.9 and 1230 AM WTBC. And streaming worldwide on the free Tide app.
What does it mean to advertise and do your marketing with Town Square Media Tuscaloosa? Melissa started her business in 2014. What would you say to someone considering Town Square Media Tuscaloosa?
My experience with Town Square Media has been awesome, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone. I think that this is the first time in my marketing experience that I've been able to see my return on investment. I would definitely say in the past that has not been the case. In this, I like knowing that that's 100%. A lot of the marketing we've done has been radio. You guys have so much more to offer than that, whether it's, websites, from targeted marketing to radio. You are kind of a one-stop shop, and it makes doing marketing so much easier. So I would definitely recommend it.
For more info on marketing with Town Square Media Tuscaloosa, call 205-345-7200 or click on Advertise with Us on our website.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Here's your Tuscaloosa and West Alabama forecast. A heat advisor remains in place. Sunny, hot, 100 degrees for a high this afternoon. Heat index values near 110, and a light northwest breeze won't give us much in the way of any relief. Partly cloudy, very warm tonight. Lows tonight only dipping to 79. Wednesday, sunshine, 95. An afternoon shower or storm possible tomorrow. Sunny skies on Thursday, cooling to 93. Richard Wedding of the Weather Channel for Town Square Media Tuscaloosa.
It's 96 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
Want to know what's going on with the Crimson Tide? Download the Tide 100.9 app today.
Welcome back to the Deep South College Football Show here. We're talking a little Big Ten football, and we talk about the Ohio State defense right now. And this defense was lights out a season ago, but you lose Caleb Downs, you lose Sonny Styles, you lose Arvell Reese, you lose the big defensive tackle as well, whose name just completely erased out of my mind. So I do apologize. McDonald, I think was his last name. I do apologize for that. So a lot of new faces are going to be populating this defense for Ohio State. Some familiar ones if you follow Alabama football. James Smith projected as a starter on that defensive line. Quay Russaw at rush defensive end or right defensive end, I guess, kind of that outside linebacker type of role there. He's projected to get some significant reps for Ohio State this season. Earl Little Jr. is expected to be kind of their nickel corner, their nickel back here.
I didn't realize he went from Alabama to Florida. I didn't realize he was at Florida State last year. I didn't realize he transferred to OSU as well.
Had the game of his life against Alabama in week number 1, and that's all you need to get paid in college football because Ohio State ponied up for Earl Little Jr. here. But some guys are returning here. Kenyatta Jackson Jr. At that other defensive end spot. Redshirt senior here last season for Ohio State. 11 tackles for loss, 6.5 sacks, 2 quarterback hurries, 2 passes swatted as well at defensive end. Devin Sanchez at cornerback. He was a starter on this team last season, 15 tackles, 2 pass breakups. So some familiar faces will stay on this Ohio State roster. Bo Atkinson as well, who had 11 tackles, 2.5 for loss, 12.5 tackles for loss in 2024, though. So a guy with a lot of college football experience here. A lot of guys that are veterans on this Ohio State defense, but at the same time, how much of how good that Ohio State defense was last season was just Caleb Downs, Arvell Reese, Sonny Styles, go play C-ball, get ball. Let those guys play in their best possible positions. And that's what they did. And Ohio State had one of the best defenses in the country last season. Bad play here or there is what cost them that game against Miami defensively. So Ohio State here, I expect them to still be a really good defense this season. Whitman's mentioned it before, but they've retained Matt Patricia as the defensive coordinator, Super Bowl winning defensive coordinator. He had every quarterback that they played, not named Fernando Mendoza or Carson Beck, he had their life in living hell. And even then, Mendoza didn't have a great game in the Big Ten Championship.
I was going to say, they still put Mendoza through a few car wrecks in that game.
That they did. Hell, first snap of the game, Mendoza goes down and misses a couple of plays. So they know how to get after the quarterback here. By the way, Cam Calhoun, former Utah and Alabama cornerback, also sitting in Columbus, Ohio, is projected as the backup to Jermaine Matthews Jr. They're in Columbus here this upcoming season. So a lot of familiar faces if you followed college football, a lot of familiar faces if you followed Alabama.
Do you think that Alabama repertoire between those 4 players that we mentioned previously, do you think that helps Ohio State with some continuity in play style for that defense?
Yes and no. Cam Calhoun and Earl Little never played together at Alabama. They were never here at the same time. Cam Calhoun transferred in last season to Alabama from Utah, so only 1 season in Tuscaloosa. Well, last year, Earl Little was at Florida State, so they never crossed over in Tuscaloosa. So no in the secondary. But in the front 4 defensively, absolutely. When you look at James Smith and Quay Russaw, they played high school ball together. They both committed to Alabama. They both played at Alabama. Were both starters to start last season for the Crimson Tide. So in the front 4, I would say that answer is yes. When you get Quay Russaw and James Smith on the field at the same time, and when they're both playing at 100%, when they're both giving 100% effort, yes, absolutely, they can be game wreckers. In the secondary, not quite as much. Cam Calhoun didn't really play a ton last season for Alabama. Good player, very, very physical cornerback, but I think maybe was a little too physical at times, got a little too grabby, and just could not reliably defend without the risk of drawing some major pass interference penalties or defensive holdings and things like that. But even still, a lot of continuity on this roster for Ohio State here between the veteran guys that they've got returning. Like I had mentioned, Devin Sanchez, Jalen McClain's back at strong safety here. Jermaine Matthews is back as that other cornerback spot there. Bo Atkinson and Kenyatta Jackson Jr. as well on the defensive line. Looking at the schedule here for Ohio State, not as easy as it's been in past seasons. Still not, and Whitman's going to hate this, still not the grind of an SEC schedule, but it's a much tougher schedule than I think what Ohio State has been playing the last couple of seasons here. Ball State in week 1, okay, whatever. At Texas in week 2. Now, Ohio State, yes, they beat Texas last season. However, it was Big Noon kickoff, and Ohio State got that game at home. And not to mention, you had the amplified effect of Lee Corso, his final college game day, them doing the helmet picks, or them doing the picks on the field, and him putting on Brutus the Buckeye's head as his final pick as a member of College Game Day staff there. This game is going to be incredibly different. This is going to be a night game in DKR. Ohio State's played in some tough environments. They've played at the Big House. They've played in Autzen. They haven't played a night game in the SEC. And I understand, SEC, woo, grind of an SEC schedule. It is different when you go to DKR. It is different when DKR is at night. And it is different when DKR is hosting a top-ranked opponent. And guess what? All 3 of those factors are going to be at play here. And again, oh, by the way, it's early in the season. Ohio State's still going to be trying to build continuity on defense after losing the guys that they lost. And Arch Manning is going to be better than he was last season. He's got better wide receivers. He's got better running backs. His offensive line should be better. And that defense has still got to deal with, and that defense has still got Colin Simmons on it.
Yeah. And as much as I am a proponent for the SEC needing this Texas-Ohio State game to go their way, that being Texas beating them. I do still have my reservations about Steve Sarkisian and him being a big-time head coach, and like we mentioned, also being the primary play caller for that offense.
Yeah.
That does give me concerns because we've seen it before with Sark against other big-time programs in big-time matchups, notably the Ohio State game in the Cotton Bowl, like we mentioned. Also, every single game he's played against Georgia. Has he done it on the road? Yes. Michigan, here in Tuscaloosa. But when he's facing an equal roster, it does seem to be a bit of a challenge for him when it comes to play calling. That offense does usually struggle.
They do. Now, I haven't looked this up, so I don't know who the primary play caller is for Ohio State this season. If the way I look at it is this, if Steve Sarkisian is going up against another head coach that is the primary play caller, I'm probably going to take Sark. But if it's Steve Sarkisian against an equal roster, against a CEO style of guy, now I'm getting a little nervous. Now I'm a little iffy. Like Jackson had mentioned, Kirby Smart in Georgia, they're undefeated against him. Ryan Day's 2-0 against Steve Sarkisian with the playoff game and with the first game of the season last year, right? So, I mean, the track record's not the best right now for Steve Sarkisian in Texas.
It's not. And if Mike Bobo can call a game in circles around Steve Sarkisian offensively, I have no doubt that. I mean, I doubt Arthur Smith, but can he call a decent game? Probably.
He's at least done it once or twice before.
Yeah, once.
He's had it. I mean, he keeps getting jobs, so clearly somebody likes him.
I mean, he's beaten the Bucs and the Panthers in close overtime games where they put up 40 points, but then lose. I digress.
I would say, you beat the Bucs and the Panthers and hang 40 on them, and then you go to New Orleans and you lose 17-9. So, but Kent State, Illinois at Iowa on October the 3rd. Iowa's the one I'm circling as the trap game. Kinnick Stadium is such a weird place. It's such an odd venue, and Iowa is always ready to go for that matchup. That's sandwiched right in between two road trips for Iowa. Iowa's always the trap for Ohio State. Maryland on October the 10th at Indiana, October 17th. They got to go to Bloomington. They get a bye week. Then they got to go to Los Angeles and play USC. Then they got to come back home and play Oregon. So that's a really, really tough three stretch of games there. A bye week sandwiched in the middle of Indiana and USC there when you look at Ohio State's schedule.
Yeah, and then after you play Oregon at home and then Northwestern at home, you go to Nebraska. And at that point, Nebraska could be a lot better than people think. I do think, obviously they missed out on the Kenny Minchie sweepstakes to Kentucky and Will Stein, but Matt Rule's a pretty good coach. I do think that being before the Michigan game and after a 3-game stretch, that could also be a trap game for them.
I could see that also being a trap. And then, as always, the game against Michigan, 11 o'clock on Fox. Big noon kickoff will be there. That one's in Columbus, though. I feel comfortable with Ohio State in that game this season, although rivalry games always get a little frisky. But I look at that 3-game stretch, Indiana, USC, Oregon, 2 road trips. Teams have notoriously struggled. I've mentioned it every time we talk Big Ten. Teams really, really struggle going 2+ time zones another direction. So Ohio State, you've got to go 3 time zones. Ohio State's in Eastern time. I don't know if I realized that. I made the same face when I learned that fact last night doing research. Ohio State is apparently Eastern time zone. So going from Columbus, Ohio to Los Angeles, California, you're traveling 3 time zones backwards. If that's an early if that's big noon kickoff on the West Coast, Ohio State's playing that game at 9 a.m. body time. Now, if it's a night game or if it's a 2:30 game, all right, that's a little more normal for Ohio State body time wise. They're used to playing that. But if that's big noon kickoff in Los Angeles, because USC, maybe they are having the season that they want, it's 9 o'clock body time. You're not ready to go play football at 9 a.m. every single day. You're not ready to do that. So you do get the bye week. Maybe Ohio State, does go out a couple of days early just to get the body adjusted, because scientists say that you're supposed to travel 1 day in advance for every time zone that you're crossing. So 3 time zones, 3 days. Ohio State plays on Saturday, so Friday, Thursday, Wednesday. Okay, so Ohio State needs to travel probably on Wednesday for that matchup there against USC. And then you got to turn right back around, and you got Oregon coming 3 time zones the other way to come to Columbus, Ohio. We'll go ahead and take our next time out here, right here on the Deep South College Football Show, Tide 100.9, 1230 AM WTBC.
The greatest play of the generation is coming to San Francisco.
Hello? Hello?
It's one of the best comedies in years.
I need to get through the curtain, please.
And a multi-Tony award-winning show.
Please, the audience needs me.
There's funny. There's very funny. And then there's Oh, Mary. Cola Scola's Oh, Mary. At the Curran Theater.
Where are we?
From October 13th through November 1st. Get tickets at us.atgtickets.com.
Bluetooth kits, and so much more. If your golf cart needs repairs, the pros at Dixie Custom Carts can handle the job. Dixie Custom Carts, Greensboro Avenue in Tuscaloosa.
What does it mean to advertise and do your marketing with Town Square Media Tuscaloosa? Melissa started her business in 2014. What would you say to someone considering Town Square Media Tuscaloosa?
My experience with Town Square Media has been awesome, and I would definitely recommend it to anyone. I think that this is the first time in my marketing experience that I've been able to see my return on investment. I would definitely say in the past that has not been the case. In this, I like knowing that that's 100%. A lot of the marketing we've done has been radio. You guys have so much more to offer than that, whether it's, websites, from targeted marketing to radio. You are kind of a one-stop shop, and it makes doing marketing so much easier. So I would definitely recommend it.
For more
Stop by on Skyland Boulevard. Mercedes-Benz of Tuscaloosa. For those who know the difference. Mercedes-of-Tuscaloosa.com. Mercedes-of-Tuscaloosa.com.
Alabama fans are all over the world, and we are too. Download the Tide 100.9 app right now in the App Store and Google Play, and take the Crimson Tide everywhere you go.
Welcome back to the Deep South College Football Show. Talked to Ohio State in the last couple of segments here, so let's shift our focus to the Oregon Ducks, who are returning Dante Moore as the starting quarterback, somebody that a lot of people anticipated to go to the NFL draft. He chose to come back to college, so massive retention for Oregon. By the way, down the line, this is something to remember for 2027. Dylan Raiola is the backup quarterback here at Oregon this upcoming season, so just stick that little nugget in the back of your mind for a couple of seasons down the line here. Decorian Moore, Dante Moore Decorian Moore and Evan Stewart are back at wide receiver here for Oregon this season here. Evan Stewart's dealt with a lot of injuries, but he's a very, very talented ball player. And if he can remain healthy, I look for him to be a massive weapon in this Oregon offense. Jeremiah McClellan as well is back, 557 yards and 3 touchdowns a season ago. They bring in Iverson Hooks from UAB, who had 900 yards and 7 touchdowns last season. So just in a general overview of this Oregon offense, it looks like they're going to be a team that's going to be able to pass the ball very, very effectively again here in 2025 in 2026 after Dante Moore threw for 3,500 yards and 30 touchdowns a season ago.
Excuse me. Yeah, and I think it's interesting to see the development of Dante Moore, and like you said, if Evan Stewart can remain healthy, I think that would play a big role in that. And I think we all agreed that him coming back for another season in college football would be the most beneficial for him, because not only will he probably get paid maybe a little less than a rookie contract, but which, I mean, in this day and age is still phenomenal money if you're a college student.
Hell, Miami was offering Ty Simpson the same money he just signed for with the Rams for a single season.
Exactly. So I will find it interesting whether or not they can go in on the road and beat Ohio State. It'll be a similar kind of environment to what they did in Happy Valley last year.
Yeah.
Will that derail Ohio State's season if Oregon wins? I highly doubt it. But I do think that Oregon has, they have to win it. They have to win those big games, and they have to show that they can do it in order to give faith in that fan base and in Dan Lanning to take them where they want to go.
You got to go out and prove that you can win these big games here. In Oregon, we talked about the passing game here very briefly, but the run game is another aspect that Oregon's been really, really strong in the last couple of seasons here. Noah Whittington was the lead guy last season with 829 yards. And I know you're thinking 829, that's really not much, but when you look at the amount of guys that they were handing the ball off to, Noah Whittington had 829 yards. Jordan Davidson, the new starting running back at Oregon, had 667 yards. De'Aaron Hill Jr., the third string running back last year, now the backup at Oregon, had 656 yards. And De'Aaron Hill had 5 touchdowns. Noah Whittington had 6. Jordan Davidson had 15 rushing touchdowns last season. So Oregon has done a really, really good job of spreading the football out in the run game, not just the passing game, getting it to a bunch of different receivers, and you don't know who you're going to have to cover, but the run game and all these running backs that have different capabilities of rushing the football here. They've done a really, really good job of getting those guys the football here. Now, I will also say Oregon is replacing both their offensive and defensive coordinator from a season ago. Offensively, it was Will Stein. Well, we know he's now the head coach at Kentucky. Their defensive coordinator was Tosh Lupoy, who used to coach under Nick Saban at Alabama. Well, he's now the head coach at Cal, and he's got JKS on his roster. So he's worried about, the left-handed kid, JKS. I'm not even going to try to pronounce his name, JKS. That's all you need to know. But their new defensive coordinator is Chris Hampton. Their new offensive coordinator is Drew Maringer. And Oregon's done a really, really good job of finding these really, really good offensive coordinators. Like, a lot of people know this. I feel like this may be something that in the SEC we don't quite remember. You remember Kenny Dillingham was the offensive coordinator when Bo Nix was the starter at Oregon? So that coaching staff had Kenny Dillingham as the OC, Adrian Clem as the offensive line coach. That looked pretty daggum good. It looked pretty good. Will Stein, the offensive coordinator the last couple of seasons there in Eugene, is now the head coach at Kentucky. So whatever Dan Lanning is doing with these offensive coaches, it's really, really working, because I have not noticed much of a drop-off in terms of Oregon's offensive statistics over the last 7 years, 8 years that these guys have been at these programs.
No, and like you said, that does bode well to speak on the behalf of Dan Lanning as a head coach, being able to find these guys. But it also, I think, is a testament to the type of talent he's able to bring in offensively as a defensive, minded head coach. I'm not too worried about the defense, bringing in a new defensive coordinator, just because it is Dan Lanning's defense, which is, an offshoot of a Kirby Smart, Nick Saban style of defense. That heavy SEC stop the run, big physical corners on the outside, fast, quick linebackers that can go edge to edge of the field. But offensively, we mentioned it, Corey Moore, Evan Stewart, those running backs, Dante Moore. I do feel like this offense, they have the talent and the pieces on that offensive side of the ball to be able to facilitate an offensive coaching change at the coordinator position to be able to have success.
Defensively for Oregon, it is Dan Lanning's side of the football, right? Jackson just said it. Dan Lanning is a defensive-minded head coach, and he works kind of in that offshoot of the Nick Saban, the Kirby Smart defensive coaching tree there. Who do we give credit for Dan Lanning? Do we give it to Nick Saban, where he was a GA at Alabama, or do we give it to Kirby Smart, who actually gave him a defensive coordinator role before becoming a head coach? Or is it just like Nick Saban's the big head of the tree, and then here's another really thick branch that's Kirby Smart with a bunch of little branches branching off of that one?
Yeah, I think that's the way to put it, because, while Lanning was a GA here at Alabama under Saban, he really cut his teeth when he was at Georgia under Kirby Smart, learning how to call defenses, learning how to put a defense together, different styles of pressure, different packages, playing to the strengths of your player personnel. So I do think, learning from that developmental standpoint under Kirby, you kind of nudge it that way.
Yeah. Same thing with Glenn Schumann. He was a student assistant here at Alabama, but really started to cut his teeth when he took over Kirby Smart's defense there in Athens.
Which I do feel like is a little different than like Kurt Cignetti, where he didn't coach under another Sabanite. It was just straight into a head coaching gig after being an assistant here in Alabama.
Oregon's defense is led at defensive tackle by Amari Washington, who had 33 tackles last season. No Terrence Green. He left Oregon. He's now at Alabama. But Oregon's got some big names on the defensive side of the ball. Mateo Uyunglele, who is the brother of DJ Uyunglele, the former Clemson, Florida State, and Oregon State quarterback. No idea where he's at right now. Didn't he sign like a undrafted free agent deal with the Chargers or something like that. I want to say that's right. But the brother of DJ Uyunglele, Mateo, is playing defensive end at Oregon. 9.5 tackles for loss, 6 sacks a season ago. Bear Alexander is still hanging around college football, by the way. He's projected to start on this Oregon defense.
Which doesn't shock me that he went to Oregon because Dan Lanning is the one who initially recruited him at Georgia.
There you go. So there's a bit of that connection there. Regardless, still a good defensive tackle. 50 tackles, 6.5 for loss last season. 6 quarterback hurries, providing that pressure up the middle of a defense. Oregon went out and got one of the best defensive players in college football and brought him into Eugene in Coy Parrish, a safety from Minnesota that I think I was shocked he played 2 years at Minnesota. I thought he was going to be a one and done at Minnesota, go off to another program, but he stayed last season. But now he sits as one of the leaders of this Dan Lanning secondary here. Coy Parrish, the safety transfer there from Minnesota. They've also got a couple. They've got an Alabama guy on here. Peyton Woodyard spent a semester in Tuscaloosa during the transition from Nick Saban to Kalen DeBoer. He was a part of the Alabama roster that's first spring practice, and then decided to hit the transfer portal. He's expected to get some good reps at safety this season, although it's probably going to be behind Aaron Flowers, a redshirt sophomore who had 70 tackles. Again, I expect this Oregon defense to not really miss a beat when you look at Dan Lanning being the lead guy there in Eugene. The schedule as well for Oregon here. Let's get about 3 minutes left here. You open against Boise State, a Pac-12 team. You go to Oklahoma State, and that's one that, do we circle that as a trap with Oklahoma State being a brand new program? Drew Mestemaker, Caleb Hawkins, a lot of good players on that roster, but it's really, really early, and you're playing a team with national champion aspirations. Do we at all circle this as a trap with Oregon having to come 2 time zones across the country? I don't know. I don't know if we circle that as a trap. I mean, and they also play Portland State a week later, by the way. So it feels like they can probably pour all their focus into Oklahoma State, knowing that Portland State, no disrespect, didn't know they had a football team until I saw them on Oregon's schedule about an hour and a half ago.
Never mind, I'm not going to say it.
We'll leave it at that. USC, they go to the Coliseum on September the 26th. They get a bye week to start October, but then they play UCLA and Nebraska at home. They go to Illinois, 2+ time zones, and Brett Bielema loves to talk to the media. Brett Bielema loves to run his mouth right now. Halloween night, you play Northwestern at home. Okay. And then we get into the toughest month for Oregon this season here, the month of November, where you got to go to Ohio State on November the 7th. You come home and you play Michigan. Then you got to turn around and go to Michigan State. By the way, no bye week in the middle of all this. So 3 time zones one way, 3 time zones back, 3 time zones another way, and then you come home for that end of season game against Washington.
That is a tricky stretch there between OSU, Ohio State, Michigan. But let's not kid ourselves with Michigan State here. They should be able to handle them with ease.
Walking backwards.
Right. The Washington game I would circle because I do think rivalry weekend, we've seen bigger things happen.
We have. We've seen chaos in rivalry week. What happened in 2024 with rivalry week? Everybody was fighting. Everybody was kicked off.
That's what happened.
Can we please get that again? I understand people don't like that and national heads don't want to see that. I want to see that. That was so much fun where everybody, we were dropping helmets, we were dropping shoulder pads, we were fighting in tunnels. I mean,
we've got
planting flags at midfield.
We've got the game, the Iron Bowl, NC State, UNC, Georgia Tech. They got fighting in the end zone. Florida State. I mean, they were 5,
the Palmetto Bowl,
7,
Carolina, Clemson,
7 or 8 rivalry games that whistles were beep 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 beep, trying to get everybody to stop.
It was a lot of fun. I hope everybody stays safe, but wouldn't hate to get to see that again here. That'll do it for us today on the Deep South College Football Show. We'll go ahead and run an interview with Randy Powers from How About Them Dogs Cast. Getting back to the SEC, God's country, the Southeastern Conference here. We'll see you gentlemen tomorrow at 1 o'clock Central Time right here on Tide 100.9 and 12:30 AM WTBC, your home for Alabama Crimson Tide sports.
The greatest play of the generation is coming to San Francisco.
Hello? Hello?
It's one of the best comedies in years.
I need to get through the curtain, please.
And a multi-Tony award-winning show.
Please, the audience needs me.
There's funny. There's very funny. And then there's Oh, Mary. Cola Scola's Oh, Mary. At the Curran Theater.
Where are we?
From October 13th through November 1st. Get tickets at us.atgtickets.com.
Bluetooth kits, and so much more. If your golf cart needs repairs, the pros at Dixie Custom Carts can handle the job. Dixie Custom Carts, Greensboro Avenue in Tuscaloosa.
Coming up on The Game with Ryan Fowler.
Coming up on the Tuesday edition of The Game, we're going to talk to Mike Titillier, WWL, the Big 870. We're also going to catch up with Bill Bender right here starting at 2 p.m. on The Game with Ryan Fowler on Tide 100.9, 1230 WTBC, your home of Alabama Crimson Tide Sports.
The longest-running sports talk show in Tuscaloosa. The Game with Ryan Fowler. Weekdays.
US Mobile. Just search for US Mobile. Just go to US Mobile subreddit and make a decision for yourself. If you're ready, visit usmobile.com.
Consumer Reports does not endorse products or services.
Tide 100.9 Tuscaloosa weather.
Here's your Tuscaloosa and West Alabama forecast. A heat advisor remains in place. Sunny, hot, 100 degrees for a high this afternoon. Heat index values near 110. And a light northwest breeze won't give us much in the way of any relief. Partly cloudy, very warm tonight. Lows tonight only dipping to 79. Wednesday, sunshine, 95. An afternoon shower or storm possible tomorrow. Sunny skies on Thursday, cooling to 93. Richard DeWetting of the Weather Channel for Town Square Media, Tuscaloosa.
It's 96 degrees in Tuscaloosa.
The best station in the state, breaking down Alabama sports. Tide 100.9 and streaming on the Tide 100.9 app.
Welcome back into the Deep South College Football Show, hanging around Tampa, Florida, and I run into my guy Randy from How About Them Dogs Cast. Randy, good to see you, man. Shake your hand in person. How you doing?
It's going well. We're enjoying Clearwater Beach this week.
Absolutely. So, hey, you came in just in time. Georgia Day today down here in Tampa, Florida. Kirby Smart, fiery as usual at the podium up there today.
Yeah, I talked about it all week. I'm like, when you're watching what Kirby's doing at the podium this week, understand that he's going to be there with a plan. And that's exactly what I saw today. When he stepped up there, I was thinking about the things I said to look for. Like, he's going to talk about, what's going on in the overall landscape of college football, but he's going to drive home the things that his program's about, which is consistency, retention. We're going to be physical. So as I was listening to him, it was like check, fire, straight fire from Kirby. He was confident today, which I thought maybe tells us a little something. And you saw it in that answer about the wide receivers.
Yes.
He's like, oh yeah, y'all just keep doubting us because I think I got something there.
The media loves to go out and doubt the dean of college, or the dean of the SEC, as Greg Sankey called him earlier today. Yeah. Longest tenured coach in the conference now. Yeah. Only head coach in the SEC that was hired prior to 2020.
That's amazing. I hadn't even thought about it, but that's a fact. Absolutely. And to navigate through that, and Sankey, he was with Sankey during all of the COVID stuff. Mm-hmm. So when they speak fondly of each other, it doesn't surprise me, because they navigated that together. And then on the other side of it, Georgia had their success. So I think he's like, I appreciate you, Greg. And he means it.
Absolutely. And Greg Sankey and Kirby Smart have been kind of in lockstep in this idea of the SEC might be willing to break away from the NCAA. You heard Kirby Smart mention it again today at the podium.
He did. And the quote was something like, we've been in lockstep for a minute on that.
Yeah.
And Kirby talked about it when he was in front of the local media. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that it got the traction maybe, or at least it wasn't the focal point in the day-to-day grind of Georgia coverage. Mm-hmm. But he said that before. But to step to a national podium and say that, or a national availability and say that, at first, when I saw the headlines on ESPN, it's real. I was like, okay. But now when you got a guy like Kirby out there going, hey, I'm okay with it, because there's been so much talk out there about The 9-game schedule, if you're outside the conference, people are looking at SEC and listening to the coaches and saying, man, they're whining. But I didn't hear that from Kirby Smart.
Yeah.
Kirby's saying, you want to play? Let's play. And if we got to separate, that's fine. I mean, he's just about the game. And what was his quote today? I'm about winning, or what it takes to win, or something like that. I think that's who the man is. I say it all the time. He's going to tell you the truth. And I think that's what we heard.
We talked to some of the players today here, Gunnar Stockton, Raylan Wilson, and Drew Bobo. The relationship between Gunnar and Drew as that quarterback-center duo. Gunnar had mentioned it, best friends. I think he even said that Drew's granddad taught him how to throw a football in that breakout media session up there today. So it was a lot of fun getting to talk with those guys here this morning. And Kirby's done such a really good job of getting them to eat, sleep, live, breathe Georgia football the way Kirby Smart does. I mean, one of the guys up there asked Gunnar Stockton about, hey, the Florida game, it's not in Jacksonville, it's going to be in Tampa. What's that game mean being, or not in Tampa, in Atlanta? What's that game mean being in Atlanta? And Gunnar said, there's a date on that game for a reason. I'll worry about that game when we get to that game. Right now, I'm worried about fall camp because that's what's coming up next.
Yeah, and the notion they were asking about Oklahoma City, right? Who they studied in the offseason and why and how they do it. And Kirby, again, was just hammering the points. It's about something that's bigger than you.
Yeah.
Buy into it. And I think the proof is in the pudding. It's a proof of concept. Texas favored to win the league again, apparently, according to the media. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I posted about it yesterday, I think it was. That's great, Texas, but I'm not going to believe it until you show me.
Right.
Show up and handle your business, and then we'll be equal, and there you go. But until then, nothing changes until it changes.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, you think about it here with Texas and Georgia. For the record, the ballots are coming out this afternoon. They're due by Thursday night. I've gone through and I've done a team deep dive on my show of every SEC team and record predictions. Well, my record prediction is if for those that listen to the show and have been paying attention to it, I've got Georgia and Texas back in the SEC championship. And for me, Texas is going to have to prove me wrong because I'm going to pick Georgia because the way Georgia plays physically is something that we haven't seen another SEC team match. Even I felt like in that Sugar Bowl against Ole Miss, it really to me felt like Georgia was the more physical team. It was just Trinidad Chambliss was Trinidad Chambliss.
Exactly. He became who he was. And it's just, and I posted this today, Gunnar Stockton is the embodiment of everything that Kirby Smart and that program are right now. Look at what he did last year. He beat Trinidad Chambliss and Ole Miss in Athens, 5 touchdowns. He beat Texas, Narch Manning, 5 touchdowns. And yet he's still glossed over and not considered a top quarterback in the conference by most. And all he's doing is vibing that Georgia culture. So when people talk about what that is, it's a real thing. And if you don't believe me or you don't know what it is, look at the results. And that's what it is. It's about the hard work. It's about the physicality. It's about that stuff. And they mean it when they say it. I know if you're not inside the building, or especially if you're not inside the conference, it may sound hokey or talkish, but I'm telling you, just believe your eyes because it is what it is.
Yeah, Georgia's been one of the most physical teams. They've been one of the most well-prepared teams week in, week out. It feels like Georgia takes Austin Peay just as serious as they take Texas or Alabama.
Yeah, and in those post-game interviews that we did, like last year, you mentioned Austin Peay. I'm standing there chatting with the young men, and they're telling me, I'm telling you, it sounds no different than when they played Texas. The way they view Austin Peay is the way they view Texas. And I know you think it can't be that way in this era. It is in Athens.
Yeah, Kirby's done a really, really good job there. So keeping in mind the schedule here, no Florida, no Tennessee on the schedule.
Right.
For the first time in God knows how long.
15, 20 years maybe?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So just a little odd seeing that, but you still got some really good matchups. You get Oklahoma in Athens for the first time ever, second time those two have ever played. I was actually watching that Rose Bowl last night because might be the best game I've ever seen.
Yeah, a classic, instant classic. And the schedule is awesome. I was looking over it. I still haven't gone through and done my game by game yet.
Right.
But I am leaning toward where you are, which is that Georgia's going to be pretty good this year. I expect them to be right in the mix.
Shocking, breaking news.
And the bottom line, walking away from media days here, there's going to be a lot said that's going to fade by August.
Yeah.
But the bottom line, walking away from this, is I think we know exactly that Kirby Smart